Hello and welcome to Concert Pipeline. I'm Steve Jones. It's been a minute. Okay. I got a lot to unpack here, and I'm just going to go for it and let it come naturally because that's what I do here at Concert Pipeline. So today on the program, I have Clay Melton on the show. He has a new single, "Live on a Wire," that's coming out February 24th. And he's a blues dude. We'll get into that in just a little bit and chat with Clay. So that'll be fun. But before we bring Clay in, I just want to unravel a little bit and kind of share where I'm at, because it's been 105 days since the last episode of Concert Pipeline. Yes, that's almost 3.5 months since we had Lyrics Born on the show. And I went on a little bit of a hiatus of sorts, which I've never done with Concert Pipeline since I started the podcast over 9 years ago. January 2014, I think, is when we started Concert Pipeline, and the most I've ever taken off is a week, maybe 2 weeks, but we took over 3 months. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to bring it back. I even asked my buddy Joe, who hosted the podcast with me when we started it. I asked him, I was like, "Is Concert Pipeline over?" And he asked me the question back. He's like, "Hey, what do you think? Like, if you're asking me the question, then you kind of know the answer already, right?" I took the time away because I had a lot on my plate, and I didn't want to overwhelm myself, and I just needed a breather from the podcast and to not do so much in my life right now. So I'll kind of fill some of those gaps in what the last 100+ days has been like for me outside of Concert Pipeline, which hasn't been on my plate, right? So I got a new puppy. Her name is Navy, and I'll drop a picture in over here probably for a second to share. She's a cutie. She is a chocolate lab, and she is a handful. I got her at 10 weeks, I think, 8 weeks, pretty young, and there's been a lot there, right? And I had a lot going on with kind of raising her up a little bit, and her engaging with my dog Basil, my husky shepherd that I had, and I will use the word "had" in past tense because we had to put Basil down a couple weeks ago. He was very old and had some medical issues, so that I don't need to really unpack that right now, because if I do, it won't turn out well. But that was a big loss for me. But they're engaging together. It was great. I mean, in a lot of senses, but also he kind of instilled some behaviors in her that I had to kind of over control a little bit, because they were both just poop and piss in my house all the time, and I was losing my mind handling both of those situations. So Navy, my chocolate lab, I got her, so she'll be my hunting dog next season when October comes around again. I'll be able to get her out and train her for hunting, and I'll be training her in the off season a lot as well, getting her up to speed, getting her really birdie to get out on some duck hunts. Which shakes into the other thing that has been taking a lot of my time this past season, and that is duck hunting, which if you've watched any episodes of this program, maybe not every episode, but a decent number of them, I talk about duck hunting in some capacity, because I've been chronicling my voyage, my transformation as a duck hunter, a growing duck hunter, right? It didn't start out great. I had to start from the ground floor and work my way up, and I've been getting better and better every season. I was pretty proud of last season's hunting completion. I brought in 30 birds in the last year's season, which is pretty cool. And this season, I've been really furthering my abilities as a duck hunter, and set goals for myself, and really wanted to focus on those goals and not put a ton of pressure, but make sure I'm continuing to grow and learn and craft my skill in that area, because it's something I really believe in, and it's something I want to be a part of my DNA. And my closest friends do it as well, and so it's an opportunity for me to get out with my friends and and be outdoors and to do something productive, harvest food for myself, that sort of thing. Just for myself, really, because my kids won't eat duck. It's really disappointing how picky they are. But yeah, so I've been getting out duck hunting this past season from October to this past like week and a half ago. The season ended at the end of January, so I'll kind of run down some of my stats for the season, which I'm pretty proud of, and I hit most all of my goals, pretty much all of them, really. And so the end of the season, I ended with 48 birds, which is pretty impressive coming from 30 the prior season. So that's pretty exciting. It's more than 50% more, right? So 48 birds, no scratches. That means no hunts where I went out and did not walk home with at least one bird that I shot. And that was a milestone for me as well, because the prior season I had 5 hunts that I went out on and didn't come back with a bird at all. And that's, I keep my chin up about it. I'm positive. I don't let it get me down, because I want to enjoy the hobby and get out and not have it just be about the numbers or anything along those lines. But you want to come home with something, right? And so I didn't have any hunts where I came home with less than one bird. Also, a stretch goal was limiting. I had never had a true limit of my own in my season's duck hunting prior. A limit being 7 ducks that I shot all in one day. That's the most you can come home with. And this season I did. I limited, and it was exciting. I was really proud. And then I limited again on another hunt. So 2 hunts where I came home with 7 birds. And I hunted 15 days. I had 15 hunts. So I averaged more than 3 birds per hunt getting out this season. The one goal that was kind of a stretch goal and didn't necessarily have this season on it was to come home with a pintail, a Drake pintail, which is a really pretty bird that I want to put on my mantle. I want to mount it and have it with a long pin at the end. So I wanted to have that in my arsenal, and I didn't get the chance to. And to be honest, some of my buddies took that chance away from me because you're only allowed to shoot 1 per day, 1 Drake pintail, and have 1 in your bag. And a couple of my buddies decided they wanted to shoot a second one and shot my Drake pintail on multiple hunts. That happened on like 3 different hunts at least, that my buddies shot my Drake pintail. And I didn't ask them to, but they had to hand it off to me, of course, when they shot a second one. And in some cases, it's not their fault. One buddy, and I won't name names, but one buddy shot a Drake pintail when I was hunting with. When it went around to his side, he'd already shot one, and then it went around his side. And I'm like, "Is that a pintail? Is that a pintail?" And then he shot it, and then found out it was a pintail. You're supposed to ID the bird before you shoot it in that case, and know that it's a Drake pintail, so you don't shoot a second one. So he shot the bird that I would have ultimately shot. And on my last hunt of the season, different buddy actually Scotch doubled on Drake pintails. There was a flock of pintails that were coming in, and my buddy shot 2 with 1 shot, and so one of those ended up being mine. We went off to chase them, and he ended up blasting its head off because we were like 8 feet away for the second shot of the other one that he downed. So those are the pintails that I ended up with, and I'm not mounting a pintail that a buddy shot. It needs to be my pintail. So no pintail for me this past season, but next season hopefully that'll happen. And that wasn't one that I'm like, this has to happen this season, because I want it to be the right bird. So those are some of the things on top of constant busyness with the kids. After moving into a new home and really focusing on taking care of myself and everything, just like really, Concert Pipeline needed to be put to the side for a bit. And what will it be right now? I'm not sure. I'm not sure right now, to be honest. But I know that I have an interview with Clay Melton on this program, and we have an interview for next week's program as well. So we got a couple weeks of interviews lined up, and then I'll take it as it comes. I don't want to put pressure on it. And concert pipeline has always been this thing that I've done for fun, and to get to talk to musicians and hear their stories, have long form kind of conversations where we can, and really dig in and get to know musicians, sometimes get out to concerts and share concert footage. It's a little less of that now. The times have kind of changed since COVID for me with concerts. I don't go to as many as I used to. I do have opportunities to sometimes, but it's very hard with my kids and their situations that I have to support. They're at my house pretty much almost every day in some capacity. So it's kind of changed in that regard. And I like it. I like doing concert pipeline through Zoom and being able to just sit down and have a chat with these musicians. So we'll see what concert pipeline turns into. But it looks like we're going to get to 500 episodes here in a couple months, our 500th episode. And I don't know what that'll look like, but we'll see. I have a couple of ideas, but don't know where it's going to land yet. So that's my story. And catching everybody up on what's been going on since October of last year when I put Concert Pipeline on the shelf for a little bit. So thank you, John Lappin, for offering me a couple more interviews, helping me scratch off the old interview hat, whatever it is. I don't know what to say, guys. It's not great, but and I am going to be doing another century ride, which I'm excited about, in May with my buddy Joe. So we're doing that again, 100 miles on our bike. So I'm going to be getting out biking, a bunch, and building up to that 100 miles, because that was a really big milestone for me and an accomplishment that I was really proud of. And why not do it again, right? So that's what I got cooking. So without further ado, why don't we get to my interview with Clay Melton? Had a chance to talk to him, and we're going to bring him in right now. So I want to start with asking you how you've been holding up this past week in Austin. I mean, you're in the Austin area, right?
I'm actually in Houston.
Houston. Okay. How is the weather out there? Because I know that I have a lot of friends in Austin, and I know it's been pretty rough with the weather recently.
Yeah, for all my friends up there, and they're in Dallas and North, it's been pretty intense. We lucked out down here. It was, it looked like Seattle for a week, but then we had beautiful weather the last couple of days, thankfully. We had our freeze last year during that first kind of unprecedented freeze. February, we had busted pipes everywhere, and we got it then, but we lucked out this time.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, did it affect you at all? Your pipes busted and you had to get that all fixed and everything?
Oh yeah, last year I live, and I was then as well. I live in my grandpa's old home, and it's from the '70s, and he was a fix-it-yourself kind of guy. So there's a lot that I found out about once we were facing the freeze and stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I'm glad you're okay with that. So that's good. Yeah. So I know you have a gig coming up at the in March, right? Like, where you're getting a bunch of friends together and you're putting on a show.
Yeah, this is we're calling it Clay Melton and Friends, and it's kind of a second annual. Last year we did the same event at the same venue, Do in the Woodlands, Texas. Who are great people. They're a venue that was very kind to me when I was too young to get into bars, and gave me my first opportunities to get up and open for acts and stuff. And so last year we got together with some friends I have here in town, great performers, and Searle Tune of Cool and the Gang came, and that's where we recorded our live album that we put out last summer. So this time is more just a concert for fun. We wanted to do it again and do one more time because it's our last gig in Houston and Texas until probably June or July.
Yeah. Do you have plans to get on the road a decent amount?
Yeah, this spring we're hitting the East Coast mainly. In April we're starting off in Louisiana at the Baton Rouge Blues Fest, which will be fun, and then we're going up for about 2.5, 3 weeks. New York, all those East Coast states, and we're gonna be just hitting the road.
And tell me about for you the dynamic versus playing a festival versus a club like you would in Houston.
Sure. I like both. Both can be fun. Both can be, who knows, right? Uh, Festivals, can be very throw and go, as they say, right? You show up, you get your line check, and then you're off to the races because they're putting performers back to back, and don't want people standing around, and so that part is always kind of a hustle, to get going. But it's like in most show situations, club, venue, hall, whatever. Like after the first, kind of tune, the band's locked in, and then you're just going. But I also love a club and I love intimate environments, as a performer and as a fan, I love getting to see acts that you wouldn't normally be able to see in a smaller setting, when they do club
Yeah.
shows or something like that. It's a different energy.
Yeah. And your dad used to take you to your first gigs when you were young, right? Tell me about kind of the support from your dad, or was your mom supportive as well as you can get in?
Yeah, luckily my dad was very very supportive, still very supportive. My mom is as well. My dad though would take me out to clubs and open mics and blues jams and stuff where they're saying who's this kid, and so I'm very thankful for that. I started playing guitar at 11, and me and him would go on Saturdays to guitar lessons and stuff, and so it was something I'm very fortunate to have had that relationship with him. And my mom was a little harder to tell once I decided to become a full-time musician. You know,
She's
it's
like, this is fun as a hobby, but you're gonna support yourself this way? I don't know. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, she's a teacher, and so it's very hard for I think anybody, including us musicians, to see the path forward as far as how do you get past all the immediate struggles and become um, kind of independent.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what was your first concert as a kid? What was your first time you went to a show?
I have two answers to this. One I'm proud of, and one is the actual first one that I was dragged to, which was Rascal Flatts, which was
Okay.
actually a phenomenal concert as I remember it. They had some great jams, but it's not usually my style of music. The first concert I was like, "Can we go to this?" Was Eric Clapton. He was playing with Dole Bramhall II, Derek Trucks, a lot of great players on that stage that night, and that was probably when I was 12, and I was very, very, very influenced and excited after that.
Yeah. So you're like, that's what I want to do at that point. Was it that early?
It was pretty early where I didn't want to do anything else as much. Nothing was
Yeah.
as much fun. I was definitely, no one ever had to tell me to practice. I was going, shutting the door in my room and playing until they told me to shut up.
Yeah.
But, before I started playing, going to open mics and jams and stuff. Me and my buddy Kyle Tom Chesson, who's now our tour manager and an artist himself, would jam in his garage. Drums and guitar. In the summer in Texas, all hours of the day, and then we played crawfish boils and block parties. And so that was really my first run at just trying to be a band and play in front of people, and then we eventually started playing out in Houston.
Yeah. Was your first band called Those Like Us?
No, but it was a band that I was in around high school.
Okay.
um, I had before that I was doing kind of a solo trio thing, kind of like what I'm doing now, but we were just local and stuff. And then in high school I played with some friends, and that was some pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Depends on your definition of heavy, but yeah.
Well, what did you learn from that experience? Like, how did that kind of develop you into the musician that you are now?
Well, up to that point, through middle school and the beginning of high school for me, I was the kid that wasn't really listening to a lot of things that were popular, and I was, listening to a lot of old blues, um, and classic rock, obviously, all the holy trinity of classic rock bands and stuff. And um, so something even at that time, I remember being attracted to me about it is I felt like I wanted to do something way outside of what I had been doing, and it was kind of a challenge to, not do a pentatonic lick.
Yeah. Yeah.
In these metal or hardcore songs. And so it was fun. You know, we did some DIY touring. It was all very DIY. As you can imagine, a bunch of high school bands and high school kids in a metal band, and so it was a learning experience and getting to play with different people, obviously. And actually, the bass player that was in that group now plays bass for us now, and he's a fantastic guitarist as well and piano player. And his name's Zach Cox, and the drummer in that band, Alec Cabrera, is one of my
Also, Zach.
great
Oh,
band.
wait, you had two Zachs in your band,
Two Zachs,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a constant issue.
Zach, get over here and help me with this thing. Yeah. Wait,
Every
which one?
now and then the telepathy lines up, and I just say Zach, and the right one turns around. You know.
Yeah.
But we
A broken clock strikes 12 twice a day still, right?
exactly, yeah. Or just keep saying Zach until the right one turns around. But yeah, no, Zach Grindle is our drummer, and we've been playing together for coming up on 9 years actually.
Wow.
And he's been a great team member and person to make music with. And then Zach Cox, who I said I'd known since high school, he just joined this group about a year and a half ago after we reconnected at a friend's wedding during the pandemic. And I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Nothing much." I was like, "Well, we're looking for a bass player," and so we got together and jammed. And so his what he brings to the team eclipses the two Zach problem by far.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a video on I think it was on your Instagram that how you prepare for tour. And I don't remember which of the Zach said it, but one of the things is quit your job, right? And
Yeah.
so is that something that kind of for you and the Zachs has been easy to kind of separate yourself and dive in, fully to a tour, to commit to, the project?
Traveling is definitely a complicated piece of being a working band. That it's one of the steps. I talk about this all the time with the band and friends, but finding the right fit in your team and band is such a specific role you're looking for, because not only are you looking for someone that can play and that plays in a style that melds well together with you and the other players, but they got to be interested in doing what you're doing. They got to be available. Have a job that can at least get them into a room, a couple times a month or on the road. And so the list becomes short very quickly. I don't. Luckily today, honestly, there's a lot of situations for people where they can work from the road or work remotely wherever. And that's actually what our drummer does currently. He has a job with Siemens, and he's working on the road from his computer during the day, and then at load-in, he's setting up his drums.
That's a good way to do it. That's and COVID had a lot of not great things attached to it, but I think it really opened a lot of those doors as well, with companies that were hesitant to to have people working remotely. And then they were able to see that, hey, this is actually possible, and you can do it, right?
Yeah, I think if that style of living and um, work-life balance works for somebody, then I think it's great. It's all the individual, but like you said, luckily, a lot of businesses have started to offer it at least.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Before we get into a lot of your music and your new stuff, I want to mention one other thing that I saw on your Instagram that I thought was really cool. You posted the Foo Fighters album. This is back in like 2014, so it wasn't recent, but I did some digging. And with the hashtag Dave Grohl is a badass, and you'll see from this picture that I agree. So, but tell me about your love of Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters.
I back in 2014, I vaguely remember, but I probably posted that because I had listened to the Foo Fighters and heard them growing up, obviously. I mean, how can you not growing up? If you're exposed to any kind of rock music, you probably might have heard the Foo Fighters or Nirvana in passing, right? Um, but at that point, I had bought a used car, and it had a stack of CDs left in it, and the color and the shape. No, was it color and the shape?
Oh God, I didn't know. Now I'm shaping to not be the biggest Foo Fighters fan. Color and the Shape, is that the album?
I
Is
think
that what
so, yes.
okay, we'll go with it.
It was left in the car, and I just played it front to back. Has like 17 tracks on it. I played it front to back so many times, and
Yeah, that was the one. The color and the shape. Yep.
I feel like Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters, they're really a special instance of. I can't think of a modern act right now that has so much uh, important history tied to them around rock and roll, and then to be doing it decades later, still one of the largest rock bands in the world. I mean, it's really a special case, and I can't think of another. You know, they're leaving a legacy, and they're going to be legends. And Dave Grohl himself, it's left such a mark. It's pretty remarkable, and I can't think of another example of a modern rock act that has that, I guess, trajectory. Simply because of how influential he was in a band like Nirvana, and then, you know, rest in peace, Taylor Hawkins. I mean, it's they're very inspirational to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really interested to see who becomes the drummer for the Foo Fighters because they've listed festival dates for the summer, but haven't said anything about a drummer. So there's a lot of speculation. We'll see what comes of that, right? So,
I know. I don't want to call it. My drummer thinks that Vinny Colaiuta would be I mean, obviously he would kill anything he plays with, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
we'll see. Uh, so your first album was Burn the Ships, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and so I want to kind of touch on that a little bit and tell me kind of your process in going into that album. Were you nervous at all? Did it feel natural? Tell me about the process of creating that album.
I was looking through, or had some memories pop up yesterday, and it was about 6, 7 years ago. We were drum tracking for that album. Nervous excitement for sure, but we went in very prepared. Being the first album, you have a lot of time to prepare for that, right? And all those songs we were recorded and demoed several times ourselves, just in our practice space before getting into the studio. And we were on a pretty tight time crunch. We did, I think, 9 tunes in 7 days, and every
Wow.
day we were doing a tune a day. So we were restarting with the drum tuning, using different kits every day, and by the end of the day, we'd be doing vocals. And I'm still happy with how it came out, and it was a huge learning experience. Dan Workman, who produced and mixed it, I had known from my kind of beginning years in Houston, and he had mentored me, but when I was way too young to be in any studio setting. He came over to some rehearsals and told me to practice to a metronome. And a couple years later, we're making an album together, and I, it was a big learning experience. And I don't, I think if we hadn't had prepared in the way that we did, as far as really knowing exactly what musical parts we wanted to lay down, that way the time we had, we could just focus on how did it sound, you
Yeah.
know rather than some situations that we like to work in now, to where the tape's rolling and we're kind of riding as we go.
Yeah. So what did you take from that, and as you went in to make Back to Blue, and tell me about also working with Danny Jones, how you got hooked up with him, that sort of
Sure. Danny, I met here in Houston. He has a studio out in Katy, and met him through our friend John in Houston, is his business title. And he introduced us. And Danny has worked with some incredible artists, and I really liked just the energy when we sat down and talked and started working together. And so we had wanted to put out the EP. We had cut some songs the year previous, at the end of 2020. That was a very interesting session for several reasons, but
thing.
we had scheduled some studio time in an Airbnb with another producer that we've been working with for a long time, Sebastian Cure, who has mixed live in Texas, and mixed our current single coming out soon. But he had moved back home during the pandemic to Colombia, where he's from, and so he was up in Austin for a week cutting with bands. And we had a session. They closed the studio for COVID reasons. Somebody in the studio had gotten it, and so they had to shut it down. And so we just ended up tracking some songs at our Airbnb
Texas Cyclone.
at Texas Cyclone. And so that had happened actually first. And then we were sitting on it because we couldn't tour. And we met Danny. And so we got together. I was like, well, let's just kind of meld these two projects together because Sebastian's in Colombia and we're here, and it was I remember the beginning of that process was such a search as far as guitar tones go and finding what we wanted to be kind of the constants in some of the recordings and sonically. And we tried like 7 guitar amps, 7 or 8, and we're changing guitars every day. But once we found it, then we were kind of off to the races. And Danny has a great way of pushing and encouraging without stepping on ideas. Just the way great producers make room for whoever's at the mic to do what they'd like to do, but also give them feedback in real time. So I still love Danny, and we've worked together on some. Every now and then I'll do session work with him, and he's just updated to a Dolby Atmos system over there. Across the Road Studio is the name of the studio in Katy, Texas. David Inninger owns it, and they're great people.
What were the constants that you wanted for that album? What were the things that you're like, this has to be in the album and a part of it?
A lot of it was like I said, sonic stuff as far as tones and textures, because our song, the songwriting, jumps around a lot. I like to I like to kind of bend as far as what we're capable of, and hope that the listeners are down to take the ride. And so I think in Back to Blue in that EP, our constants were really like vocal tones, the guitar tones. Like I said, once we found it, then we kind of ran with it, and that ended up being a Marshall Fender combo, which is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
So it was really more, I think, the constants in that, the tones and how we're going about capturing it, and just the energy that we wanted in those studio tracks, which kind of led us to the live album. Is after that, one of the things we were trying to capture in Back to Blue is like, I want it to sound like what we're doing live, which is a lot simpler said than done, right? And so I was like, well, let's cut a live album. And so it kind of was a stepping stone into what we did next.
Was the live album all from one show?
Yes.
Okay. I like it because it's you're introduced and then straight into the rock music. Like it just starts and you're like, bam, okay, we're in this, we're doing it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great album, and so tell me, for that live album, I mean, did you go in planning, okay, this show is going to be one that we're recording live, or had you had others that you kind of had recordings of that you were like, okay, maybe this can be a live album? Tell me about the process of choosing that show.
We really made it a this is the take, you better nail it, because we tracked it January 6th of last year, and kind of the months leading up to that, because it was still kind of a funny time. We hadn't gotten back out on the road, and we didn't want to play too much in Houston so we could properly promote that and get ready for the recording. So we spent a lot of those songs were written in the 2 to 3 months, written and arranged leading up to that. And a lot of them that concert was the first time we'd ever played them live. And so we went into the venue early. We had Malcolm Harper of Real Sound Audio, or Real Sound Recordings from Austin, Texas, come in and do the live engineering and tracking, and then send it off to Sebastian Cure for mixing. Our approach was that, I thought it'd be cool. A lot of times there's a lot of bands I, love to check out the live album after I've heard the songs and stuff and hear how they've done different. And just because how things had gone, I didn't think a studio album was the right move. But we had these songs. I wanted to get something out because we did want to get back out on the road. So I said, let's just go ahead and cut the live album. It's here. We can do it in a night. And then we have, a couple months to mix it and get on the road. And so now I think there's an opportunity, and we've been working on cutting some of those songs in studio. And so I think it's, as thinking as a listener and a fan, I think it'll be cool for some people to hear, how things have changed in the reverse, how things, were edited and changed in the studio arrangements. And also that comes from the fact that after we recorded that album, we went on tour that summer, and we played those songs about 1 million times now. And so,
Yeah.
we've changed things naturally. Songs are always growing, I always think of recordings as a snapshot of where the artists in those songs are at in that moment, but they're never done if you continue to play them, unless, or at least we're not the type to play them note for note the same way every time, so they just end up changing, and it's exciting.
Yeah. I like Red Beans and Nice on the album, and because it's like this breakdown, just guitar track, or you're just like, I mean, it's like a solo in the middle of a set sort of thing, right? And it's a great build up. Where did that title come from? Tell me about kind of putting that in there.
The title came very last, like while I was about to upload the album. I was like, "What the hell are we gonna call this?" Because it really was just like a guitar break, and I just wanted to do something and then lead into Louisiana 1927, and so I can't remember how the title came around. I might have been eating red beans and rice, but I'm glad you like the title. It's something that we like to do at our shows, kind of, especially our shows that are depending on the length, we kind of, like you said, the first song's pretty rock, so we come out blasting, and sometimes it's nice to give everybody a little bit of an ear break, and then build it back up.
Yeah. Tell me about how you find your voice in terms of whether channeling through rock music or blues. Like, do you feel like you have to fit into this mold with one of the two? I think there's probably for you a lot of thought from the blues. It's like that's an older person's genre. Do you feel like you have a place in the blues world, and kind of where do you see yourself in kind of the mesh of those two?
Well, I mean, I'll be quick to tell anybody that I'm not a blues uh, purist musician, or at least the material we're doing isn't what a blues purist might qualify as blues. But blues has been so inspirational, and I mean, it's inevitably in most of our arrangements, like it comes out in different ways. Um, but I grew up on so much rock and like an intenser side to music, and so I don't worry about so much of the box because, like I said, I know that we're not pure blues or traditional blues, 1/4 mile and everything and stuff like that, and so I'm not worried that people think we ought to be or that we are that because we're not, and so my mindset nowadays is we play a lot of blues fest, and we'll play bluesier arrangements as far as our sets goes depending on the crowd, just to make it a great show for everybody, and it doesn't feel inauthentic at all, because of how much blues I played growing up. It's a lot of fun, but as far as the material that we're writing, our original material, I really like to blend the two.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's a good place to be at. Um, Tell me about covering songs. I've seen a handful of covers that you've done. Some older stuff, Paul Newman, Beatles covers, that sort of thing. How do you choose, a song to cover, and does that ever kind of work itself? Well, it did work itself into an album of yours. You sometimes will put a cover on it in an album of yours, right?
Yes, we did. Jesus Just Left Chicago on Back to Blue, um, and then cut it on the live album as well. And that song, I was thinking it would be, especially here in Texas. It's hard, just like Foo Fighters, hard to grow up without hearing ZZ Top. And I always thought that song was really cool. I love the way it came in, and I'd always kind of imagined like a rocked up version of it. We had never done it live as a band before, tracking it for the in studio album. There wasn't a whole lot of it wasn't that I think that we wanted necessarily to do a ZZ Top song specifically, but I just heard it come on the radio, and we were thinking about maybe doing a cover on the album, and I was like, oh, that would be cool. And so we explored it and liked it and went with it. And then a few months after we tracked it, Dusty Hill passed. And then we put out the album, and it got a lot of airplay. I think because of that, they were spinning. It was cool. They were spinning the original version and then our version back to back on a lot of radio stations, and yeah, that was a cool moment. But so now when we play it, it's just we do it like, hey, this is a tribute. And Z Top was very influential to me growing up as well.
Yeah, I've seen them live, a couple of times, and they put on a really good show, for
Yeah.
sure.
Louisiana 1927, the Randy Newman song. I had heard originally the Aaron Neville version.
Mhm.
I'm a huge Neville Brothers, the Meters, a lot of New Orleans music is influential to me. But I'd never heard that version of his, and it's how it's a I think 91 or 94 album, 91, Warm Your Heart. It's the opening track, and it just moved me. I loved it, and so I was messing around with it. I was like, maybe this would be cool as like just broken down. His version has the horns and strings and stuff and all that. But I was like, we're a trio, so maybe I'll just do it solo. And yeah, it's a great song. And then the Randy Newman version's great as well. But Aaron Neville's voice just it's just so soulful.
It's one of a kind, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no lie.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually got to interview him once. It was a phone interview, and it was cool to be able to talk to him. I mean, he's just such a. I mean, his music was a part of my youth as well. So it's pretty cool, dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You got the chance to open for Chris Daughtry. Tell me about that, how it came about, and what was your experience with that?
That was a fun time. That happened at the Texas State Fair, or the State Fair of Texas, which we've done four or five times. And that was Glenn Smith Presents is who books that, and he's been very supportive of us. Has brought us on there. We've opened for Chris Daughtry, Grand Funk Railroad, Night Ranger this past year.
Oh, nice.
It's a really fun gig. We kind of do the working band gig on the main stage before. We'll do 3 sets, and then they'll come up with a headliner. So that set right before the headliner is always the most fun. but the experience is great. I mean, it's big old stage, those far festival stages where if you walk away from the monitor, then you feel like you're on an island by yourself.
Right.
And those larger festival stages are 100% a different sonic experience than clubs like we were talking about earlier, which can be it can be a only negative if it's mixed poorly or like you got some technical issue going on. Otherwise, it can be it's an awesome feeling. But there's a lot more that can go wrong, it seems. But
Yeah.
yeah, the State Fair Texas gigs are always a great time. And Daughtry was really nice. I got to talk to him for a little bit. His set was super tight.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I don't listen to his music often or anything. It's not really my typical style, but I was very, very impressed by his entire band and his energy and connection with the crowd. I mean, he's the real deal.
Yeah, that's really cool. I wanted to ask you about one particular show that you did in 2018, Bowie Elvis Fest. Tell me about that. I'm a big Bowie fan, and I mean, I imagine a festival like that, it would be or a show kind of where you're combining both of those artists would be pretty cool to see so many people paying tribute like that.
Oh yeah, that festival's a whole scene. They do it every year in Houston, and it's put on by a company called Splice Records. Shout out to my friend Sean Brennan, and he it's it's at the Continental Club here in Houston, which has some great history and renown here. Has sister club in Austin, Continental Club as well, and I mean they've had some crazy legends play there through the years, and it looks like it's a dive, and I say that with all the love. It's one of my favorite clubs in Houston. But it connects to the venue next door they own as well called Shoeshine Charlie's. Um, and so there's 2 stages, and bands are either covering one or the other. I think mixed in with some originals, and everybody that's at the fest is dressed up like one or the other. And it's pretty cool. You'll see somebody dressed up like Bowie doing Hound Dog, and which is funny.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a great energy.
What song did you play? Did you play one, or did you do more than one? What was
We
your?
did both Bowie and Elvis. We did Starman. We did Little Less Conversation. We did Jailhouse Rock. A couple others. I think. Yeah, we did more Elvis than Bowie that night.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So let's talk about the new music a little bit. You have a new single, "Alive on a Wire." "Alive on a Wire." I got a chance to listen to that, and you also have another single coming out a little bit further down the road, "Runner." What can you tell me about that and how it kind of plays into the album that from what I understand, you're going to be putting out later this year, early next year?
Yeah, "Alive on the Wire" is our first single back since the live album. First single back as far as in studio.
Yeah.
And we cut it all here in my living room, which was something we kind of decided or late last year after we got off a summer tour, thinking about the next recordings and um, making things financially feasible. As far as we were thinking, we'd like to spend more time um, recording as we're arranging, listening back and coming back next week and recutting all the drums if we need to. And it's just too expensive to do that in a rented studio with extra engineers. And so, like, man, we got a lot of gear here, so let's just go at it. And it's been a learning experience. I mean, I've grown up demoing and recording things for myself and friends for years, but not in an aim to really release, more in an aim to demo and write and hey, this is good, you should bring it to the studio type thing. But with this approach, we're trial and error really. Especially it's drums. It really you can make a guitar cab anywhere, but it's drums are so fickle. As far as they're just an acoustic instrument and a lot more mics involved, and so that was part of the experience of recording "Alive on the Wire." And since you've heard it, it's rock.
Yeah.
The energy of the song kind of came from when we were playing a lot last year, and it started getting ridden on the road because we were just going all the time, and late nights and early morning, long drive, right, and to do it all over again. And so that was kind of the energy that we were all feeling as we were starting to write it, and it came out. I'm happy with how it came out. Sebastian really killed the mix, and I'm just happy was able to mix it and didn't just send it back to me and say re-record the drums.
Right.
Luckily he hasn't done yet, but I was waiting on that because I'm not a drum engineer, but we're getting better here about it, and it's exciting. Like I said, it gives us more time to give the process as much attention as we think it needs.
Yeah. And tell me about how you've kind of developed your as a songwriter yourself over the past couple of albums. How have you kind of adjusted and kind of remingled your craft as a songwriter?
I think simplifying a little bit, which is funny to say with how loud and rock and roll that track is. But there's only like a couple riffs really happening as far as the main arrangement. The chorus riff isn't that very different from the verse, as opposed to arrangements where during the Burn the Ships years, we would have these songs I would call like their journeys. The bridge is somewhere completely different. Dan Workman, I remember we showed him a song that was like 6 minutes long one time, and he said, "That's ambitious."
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, I guess so." And so when we cut out, like 3 minutes out of that song, but so I think that's something that's happened, is latching on to like, what is this one thing that's working, and how do I think it's is it moving me enough to want to do a whole arrangement around it, and not throwing ideas at the wall just to make the idea work. Forcing less ideas and writing more.
Yeah.
I feel like writing can be a numbers game. The more you do it, the more likely you are to find something. You just can't expect everything to be great.
Yeah. Do you feel pressure to kind of have the songs fit into that 3.5 minute time frame, so it kind of fits into that box of sorts, or?
Not really, because radio play isn't as much of a factor anymore. I mean, people's attention spans, that's a conversation as far as how long or short they are now. But this one ended up short. It was a little bit longer. I think it was 3:45, and we cut out some things. I was like, we don't need that. We get it. Like the outro was twice as long, and I figured that it had been enough AGC, and so I don't think I feel pressure to bring it down to 3 minutes or to that kind of like radio length mark. But I also don't want to, if I'm getting bored, then the listener's been bored.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So, what do you like to do on the road for fun? When you get out on the road, what helps you take the edge off outside of playing the show?
I'd say, so we travel in an RV. There's four of us. A lot of close quarters. All the nights are together rather than, some tours where you're in your own hotel room or sharing it with somebody else at the end of the night. And as far as splitting rooms and stuff. But so even, after the gig, the downtime is all together. But what I do like is on our off days, because we're in the RV, we'll go to like Campgrounds of America and camp there and, have, decent showers, and we'll do like family dinners and stuff like that, and try and eat healthy when we're not having to rush everywhere. I really enjoy that. But then whenever we get to new towns, if we have the time, we love to go to a record shop or see what's close by the venue. You only have so much time. Typically you see so many parking lots, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I think part of what makes our touring group a lot of fun and functional, and keeps us going, is that we all get along great. We're all able to give somebody space if they need it and it not be a problem, because that's a big thing, is people, you learn a lot about people the longer they're away from their home, and whenever they start to miss their home, then it can really get in somebody's head. So just keeping a healthy environment as much as possible. We party and rock and roll for sure, but luckily Kyle Tomchesson, our tour manager, has we all trust him, and we all trust him enough to listen to him when he's like, all right boys, let's wrap it up and let's go have a good healthy day tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's that, and I read a lot, honestly, but you got to find the time to do that when you're alone.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Well, as we wind down, Clay, why don't you kind of close us out with what was a really positive memory that you have either on the road or on stage from a show that you've done?
Positive memory.
That's the hard-hitting question right here, right?
My immediate thought goes back to somebody I used to play with here in Houston when I was growing up, and he mentored me. And this was when my dad was starting to bring me out to local blues jams. We have a lot of blues history in Houston, so our blues jams are, stacked with some very, respectable and renowned players. But I used to go out to these clubs called Dan Electro's Guitar Bar and Last Concert Cafe, and someone named Congas by Carlos Johnson. He was a percussion player, and he would run these jams. And so he was one of those guys that gave me a first opportunity to get up. And, he was a great spirit to be around, and very, encouraging. But, he gave me some great lessons, and I would call this positive because it's an important lesson to learn. But in the moment, I was like, oh, man. But, it just knowing, he taught me really how to share the stage and how to listen when playing. When you're a kid getting up on the stage for the first time, you're in your head, or anytime on the stage for the first time, and you're just trying to do well. And he taught me when to shut up and let the other player play, and keep my eyes open and stuff. And he's since passed years back, and but he was very influential to me. And funny enough, when I met Zach Grindle, our drummer, we played together for 5 years, and he's 9 years older than me, but grew up in Houston playing at those same bars. And so we found out that we were both mentored by Carlos Johnson at different times in our lives, but at the same ages,
Yeah.
And that we knew the same cats at all these jams and stuff, but we missed each other by a couple years. But so Carlos Johnson, I know, influenced a lot of people, and so he's a positive memory for sure.
That's awesome. It's funny how that stuff works out sometimes, right? And
Yeah,
how small the
it's
world
always
is at the
small,
same
right?
time. Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, Clay, well, thank you for taking the time today, and good luck with the album as it comes together and getting out on the road also, and and hopefully the shows go really well for you.
I appreciate it. Been great talking to you.
That was the interview with Clay Melton here on Concert Pipeline, and that takes us to the final segment on the program, the music news. All right. I have a handful of stories to wind us out with the program. So it's been a little while since I've done music news, obviously on the program. So there's some catching up, but there's a lot of things going on in the music world. So let's dig in a little bit and share kind of what's going on. Fall Out Boy performed with an orchestra at the 2023 NHL All-Star Game and teased a European tour. They performed Centuries, My Songs Know What You Did in the Dark, and Love from the Other Side. And I think Andrew McMahon played at that as well, because he was doing an NHL show this weekend also, which I know he was really excited about. So that's pretty cool. Pete Wentz, Patrick Stump, and Andy Hurley were backed by an orchestra for the entire performance, though guitarist Joe Truman missed the show after stepping away from the band earlier this year to focus on his mental health. And there's footage online. Fall Out Boy wrote, "Gotta hand it to the mascots." They then teased the headline tour of Europe. They were excited to announce about. So Fall Out Boy's North American headline tour was revealed earlier this week, featuring special guests Bring Me to the Horizon, Alkaline Trio, Royal and the Serpent, and more. So they're doing lots of, Fall Out Boy is back, and they're doing lots of shows, kind of what's going on there. All right, exciting stuff. Backstreet Boys' Nick Carter files a countersuit against rape accuser. The story is kind of interesting because you don't see that a lot, where the person actually stands up and says, "No, actually, back at you. This didn't happen, and I'm suing you for defamation of character." Right. This suit aims to out an end to the smears and attempted shakedowns for good. And this woman claimed he raped her when she was 17. The alleged victim, Shannon Ruth, now 39, filed a civil lawsuit against the singer, 43. So this was 22 years ago that she said that this happened in Nevada court in December of last year. She claimed that Carter invited her onto his tour bus following a concert in Tacoma, Washington in February 2001, and raped her and infected her with an STI. Carter denied the allegations in a statement through his lawyer to TMZ, saying that the countersuit that he filed yesterday aimed to put an end to the smears. And according to court papers obtained by Rolling Stone, Carter filed his counter complaint in Nevada and is seeking at least $2.35 million in damages. Wow. Okay. That's a good chunk of money. Don't know that he's going to get that from someone who's just trying to penny pinch him. Probably, it sounds like. I don't know any details of this, but it sounds like when someone comes after a star, they're trying to get some money out of it, right? Money and attention. So Carter alleged to TMZ that the damages total is the same amount that Ruth's accusations have cost himself and his band in canceled appearances and various deals. Good way to look at it. Ruth, who described herself as an autistic and having cerebral palsy, recalled in a press conference what Carter allegedly said to her after the claimed assault. "After he raped me, I remember him calling me they bleeped out the word, but they didn't bleep out bitch, and grabbed me and leaving bruises on my arm." Carter's legal team accused Ruth of being manipulated into making false allegations by Melissa Schumann, a former member of the 2000s girl band Dream, and her father Jerome. So ultimately, it's a he said, she said sort of situation. We will see where it lands. The LA County District Attorney's Office declined to prosecute the matter after Schumann filed a police report with the Santa Monica Police Department in February 2018, explaining that the statute of limitations had expired in 2013. So her statute isn't going to go anywhere, but his might back. So, all right. Lizzo secures a trademark for the phrase 100% that bitch. It comes up after some 4 years of fighting with the exclusive rights to the phrase. U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has finally conceded that Lizzo is, after all, 100% that bitch, formally granting her a trademark for the phrase made iconic by her 2017 single Truth Hurts. Lizzo has been gunning to make the phrase a trademark since 2019, but was routinely turned away by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. She emerged victorious this week, however, when the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board ruled that that phrase is inexplicably linked to her. The board said in its ruling, consumers encountering 100% that bitch on the specific types of clothing identified in the application, even when offered by third parties, associate the term with Lizzo and her music. So she won, and she's going to perform at both this year's Grammys and Brit Awards. She's also performing at Bottle Rock this year as well. So she is out and about and getting out there. So, which takes me to kind of the story about Bottle Rock. The Bottle Rock lineup was released while we were on a hiatus. We've been covering Bottle Rock the past couple years, but I'll just put it out there that I don't think we're going to cover Bottle Rock this year. I'm not putting in for media credentials on it, I don't think so. Bottle Rock. I want to kind of share who some of the lineup is. Bottle Rock, Napa Valley. I didn't have this one ready. I should have had it ready. But BottleRockNapaValley.com. Why isn't it ready? I don't know. Bottle Rock. Okay, just say Bottle Rock. And so the lineup for this year is on Friday, Post Malone and the Smashing Pumpkins are headlining. Saturday, Lizzo and Duran Duran are headlining, and then Sunday, Red Hot Chili Peppers and Lil Nas X are headlining. The Wu-Tang Clan is also playing on Sunday. 2 out of 3 of the dates are sold out, right? With Friday being the only one to have tickets left. To be honest, not super stoked about the lineup this year. I'd like to see Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'd like to see them sometime live, but because I never have actually seen them live, but I don't know that it's going to happen. This Bottle Rock is landing on a milestone birthday for me this year, so I think I'm just going to do something else, hang out with some friends, and I'm not sure, but I don't think I'm going to cover Bottle Rock this year unless I introduce some bands virtually and for it, and we talk about Bottle Rock. We'll see. Judas Priest has shared an update after the canceled Ozzy Osbourne tour. We send all our love and support to Ozzy. Ozzy shared that he has retired from touring. He can no longer tour during his ongoing recovery from an accident. Canceled all of his upcoming shows and said it was probably one of the hardest things he's ever had to share with his loyal fans. Judas Priest was due to support him on that tour, and they said they were looking for feasible opportunities to see each other again soon. So they said, and I mean that's pretty much what they said at this point. Osbourne wrote, "As you may know, 4 years ago this month, I had a major accident where I damaged my spine, referencing a fall at his LA home, which required neck surgery. My one and only purpose during this time has been to get back on stage. My singing voice is fine. However, after 3 operations, stem cell treatments, endless physical therapy sessions, and most recently, groundbreaking cybernetics treatment, my body is still physically weak." So he's pretty disappointed, but he didn't think his touring days were going to end this way. But that's kind of where things landed. Zakk Wylde reacted to Ozzy Osbourne's retirement news, sending a message of encouragement to Ozzy Osbourne. Zakk Wylde is his longtime guitarist and lead singer of Black Label Society. He wrote, "Oz, keep hitting the iron, staying strong and positive. Everybody's praying and rooting for you. Your strength, resilience, and heart of a lion is just one of the many reasons you're a hero to me and millions around the world. When you're ready to roll, we roll. I love you, Oz, Zakk, XOXO." Zakk is great. Zakk's a great guy. it's been decades since we've interviewed Zach Wild. I'd love to chat with him again because he's one of the most amazing guitarists out there. We interviewed him like 3 times back in the early 2000s, and then never got a chance to chat with him again. So he's a real upstanding, cool dude. And then I'll end the program with this. And this is a speculative story that it strikes my curiosity, right? Foo Fighters, one of my favorite bands, Dave Grohl. We like to close out the podcast where we can with a Foo Fighters story. The Foo Fighters also, while we were on hiatus, announced that they're playing a number of festivals, not any here in the Bay Area. Unfortunately, otherwise I would be there. But that lends one question from all these festivals that they've announced that are coming out in the coming months over summer. As the Foo Fighters prepare for their live return, we explore some of the suggestions being made by fans as to who will be behind the drum kit. Who's going to be the drummer for the Foo Fighters? It's been about 10 months since Taylor Hawkins tragically passed away last March while on tour. And the Foo Fighters are taking their time. Dave Grohl has done some other projects as well, and hopped on stage where he can in different capacities. He did the Hanukkah sessions this year at Judd Apatow's charity event, which was pretty cool. They brought out a bunch of people to play each song that they covered for that evening. There were the Taylor Hawkins tribute concerts, of course, which is the hugest, greatest lineups that they've done. But who's going to back the Foo Fighters really is the question. And because Foo Fighters are getting out there. So without Taylor, we never would have become the band that we were. And without Taylor, we know that we're going to be a different band going forward. We also know that you, the fans, meant as much to Taylor as he meant to you. And we know that when we see you again, and we will soon, he'll be there in spirit with us every day. It's the message from the Foo Fighters. So one speculation, Josh Freese. And so there's some evidence that will kind of lean in that direction. He's played with the who's who of rock legends, and he even forgets to hit some of those, but he performed at the Taylor Hawkins tribute concerts, and he's been part of a ton of projects. So will Josh Freese be playing as the drummer for the Foo Fighters? Hard to tell. He's one of the speculations. There's a speculation that Dave Grohl himself will be drumming for Foo Fighters. It's a curveball, but this article says, who better to provide the backbeat for Foo Fighters than the guy who pens the songs and leads the band? As drummers, it's fair to say that we'd love nothing more to see Grohl back in action on the drums for more than just side projects and one-off performances. I was super stoked to see Dave Grohl do the Hanukkah sessions up close, right up against the stage on a small stage. That was super awesome. A couple years back when he played at Bottle Rock. So that would work in a studio context, but live, how would that work? There are some bands that have drummers as a frontman. The first band I ever was a part of interviewing, Cowboy Mouth, was one of those, with Fred as the drummer / lead singer, and he was able to do it. But is that the dynamic of Foo Fighters? I don't know. I don't think so. Rufus Taylor is another speculation, and he also performed at the Taylor Hawkins tribute concerts. He grew up from age 6 with Taylor Hawkins as his mentor, hero, and big brother. And watching Rufus back the band showed how much of an impact Taylor Hawkins had on his approach to the drums. He nailed it. So he's one speculation. Shane Hawkins, is Taylor Hawkins' own son going to be the drummer of the Foo Fighters? I would say probably not. He's a little bit young, but he has the spirit, the tenacity, the name, and a lot of bands do take the musician's son and kind of incorporate them if the musician isn't going to be able to play anymore, right? Nandi Bushell, the 11-year-old girl from England who had the drum off with Dave Grohl at the beginning of COVID, became very much a staple for the band. These are just some of the speculations. who's to say who will actually be the drummer of the Foo Fighters, other than the Foo Fighters themselves? And I'm sure they'll announce it ahead of the tour. If not, we'll be finding out probably in May, which I think is the first Foo Fighters listed dates right now, who that drummer is. So we will see. More to come. That's our show for today. I unpacked a lot outside of Clay, so thank you to Clay Melton for taking the time to chat today, and thank you for tuning in to Concert Pipeline. And next week on the program we have Savoy Brown, who we're going to have a chat with. So more to come, and thank you again for following Concert Pipeline all these years. We'll continue on as long as it seems like the right thing to do. So one episode at a time, that's what we're doing now. For all of us here at Concert Pipeline, I'm Steve Jones. We'll catch you next time.